Welcome back, survivor. If you can hear this, it means you're still alive. This is Jack's Nightmares, and this is your next story. It's 2044 now. The infection began 12 years ago. That was the year everything started falling apart in real time. Governments, cities, supply chains, communications, rule of law. In some places, it collapsed overnight. In others, it took a few weeks of denial before things snapped. Either way, once the infections hit critical mass and the first quarantines failed, there was no stopping it. The virus didn't wait for a press release or a vaccine trial. It moved from city to city, flight to flight, across rivers, borders, and oceans. The ones it infected changed fast. Some were gone within hours. Others stayed on their feet longer, wandered, turned, and dragged more with them. Every country tried to contain it. No one succeeded. I wasn't anyone important back then, just a lab assistant. I worked under a virologist from Vienna, someone I never expected to be called the last hope of a continent, but that's what people started saying when the situation went bad. I didn't see much of the early chaos from the outside. I was pulled into the federal mobilization plan, classified flights, lockdown convoys. No questions. We were told there'd been a coordinated decision to preserve the world's last chance at long-term survival. They flew us in at night. No location data. They used oxygen masks to fog our vision. When the door opened, I was underground. The bunker was part of a global fallback strategy, one of several ARC installations buried in hardened facilities. The base I ended up in was American-led, but internationally staffed. Virologists from Europe, immunologists from Asia, epidemiologists from Brazil and Canada, military engineers, supply officers, communications teams, more than 200 personnel at peak. Every one of them had been vetted, cleared, and sent here with the idea that we were supposed to ride out the collapse, then rebuild. At least, that was the plan on paper. The place itself was solid, a deep multi-level installation built into a mountain. Dormitories and life support on the upper levels, hydroponics, seed vault, water recycling in the center. Below that, biohazard labs, cold storage, centrifuge suites. Power came from a small diesel turbine system backed by solar and a flywheel bank. In the first few months, we thought we might actually do it. Stabilize the vector, identify weaknesses, build an antigen library from early phase samples. That was the mission. Stop the virus, or slow it enough that what was left of the world could crawl back from the edge. The problem was always time and trust. The virus moved faster than we could model. It wasn't just respiratory. It invaded the nervous system fast, overran tissue barriers, and kicked off violent inflammatory responses that killed some hosts and left others on their feet. The infected didn't behave the same in every region. Some were slow and decayed like the Walking Dead. Others moved faster, reacted to sound, hunted in groups. Some even retained basic motor memory and navigated terrain better than animals. It was as if the virus adapted to whatever it infected. Nothing stayed stable for long. Every strain mutated in unpredictable directions. Inside the bunker, we were safe. For a while. The labs ran 24 hours a day. Teams rotated shifts. We brought in early phase samples through surface excursions run by trained recovery units. Drones at first, then live collection. There were losses. Everyone understood that was part of it. But we started to lose more than just samples. Supply lines failed. The last outside convoy arrived during the third winter. After that, we ran off stores, hydroponics, and hope. Security started rationing. Then came the breach. It happened in Lab C, experimental ferret models for neuro-invasion pathways. A sample container failed quarantine. One technician showed symptoms within hours. The rest of the team followed. By the time we tried to seal the ring, 3 sectors were compromised. Some staff were exposed during decon. We lost 23 people that week. Lab C has been sealed ever since. I don't go near it. Not long after that, we had the internal conflict. Some of the engineers and security staff staged a failed takeover of command access. They were starving, tired, convinced the leadership was hiding an escape route. They thought the scientific teams had a backup plan we weren't sharing. That wasn't true. We barely had working pumps by that point. The fighting left 13 dead and tore the place apart. The remaining command staff called it a containment event. I call it the end of the bunker's future. 4 years ago, the last person I talked to died. Since then, I've been alone. The others either got infected, starved, suffocated when the lower filtration system failed, or took their own way out. I've kept the base running on what's left. Diesel rations, solar trickles, whatever water and nutrient cycles I can maintain. The hydroponic gardens produce just enough to stay functional. The seed vault is untouched. I won't open it unless I know for sure someone will still be alive to use it. My only companion is the base AI system, Jarvis. We developed it early in the project to help automate modeling, accelerate vaccine simulations, track mutational patterns, manage power systems. It can operate the doors, the air handling, the lab timers. It doesn't pretend to be human, and I don't ask it to. It keeps the place breathing. That's enough. I was supposed to be support staff, not one of the leads, not the face on the research reports, just a lab assistant. But I outlived them. I learned enough to keep testing. I've kept the simulations running. I know how to prep assays. I know how to extract viral conformers. I know the protocols for high-purity antigen purification and vector formulation. Jarvis helps me with the rest. Today, the system brought the base online at 0600 hours, just like every other morning. It ran a diagnostic and told me the carbon dioxide scrubber is at 93% of its recommended threshold. The diesel system shows a half tank. Battery load is down slightly overnight. Nothing I haven't seen before. The fans are running. The walls are quiet. No footsteps. No duct noise. No alarms. Just another day under the mountain. Jarvis flagged something in the overnight queue. A new simulation batch finished and marked a near success vector. One of the candidates, Vector 24 November 5, has passed thresholds in silico. Binding affinity, cross-strain response, stability. It's not perfect, but it's the best we've seen since the last viable run 2 years ago. According to the system, we're one key step away from functional confirmation. That step requires a fresh tissue sample from an early-phase infected host, less than 6 hours post-mortem. I also need to bring Laboratory D back online to use the high-speed ultracentrifuge. Final purification can't be done with the portable spinner. It doesn't meet purity spec. The rotor in the D lab hasn't been used in years. It may still work. If it doesn't, there's a backup under storage foil, assuming the seal isn't breached, assuming the system hasn't corroded. 12 years after the end of the world, I'm still in this bunker, waiting for another sunrise and another line of data that tells me it wasn't all for nothing. Maybe it still is. Maybe I'm wasting my time in a base no one remembers. But today, Jarvis says we're close. Not done, close. And that's enough to keep going. I run the morning checklist by memory. Hydroponics pumps thrum behind the glass. Leaf color is passable. The kale looks tired. The tomatoes gave up months ago. Algae is quiet in the corner tanks. Lids taped shut because I could not stand the smell during the hard winter. I open one lid anyway and stir the green with a clean paddle. I will need the calories soon. The seed vault door stays locked. I talk to it in my head sometimes. Not today. Jarvis pings. It does not say good morning. It never did. A script scrolls and a sentence lands in the center of the screen. Candidate vector 24 November 5 has crossed the threshold in silico. It needs confirmation. Fresh early phase infected tissue inside 6 hours of death. Manual ultracentrifuge run in Laboratory D for final purification. Estimated success for archived strains is above 60. Estimated success for probable drift since year 2040 is unknown. It says unknown with a period. No drama. I read it twice. I set my mug down in the same ring on the bench that I have been hitting for years. It lines up without looking. I say, "Talk to me." Jarvis replies in that flat tone I tuned years ago. No anger, no warmth. just information. Oh, it repeats the requirements and throws 2 power schedules at me. One leaves air handling at normal and kills the spin halfway through. The other steals power from air handling and lets the run finish. That second plan means I breathe stale air through most of the spin and risk a trip in the water recycler if the bearing coughs again. I pick the second plan because there is no point in perfect air if the vector is dirty. Jarvis does not argue. It tags the week with a red line. This is the week. I say the words out loud. This is the week. Jarvis logs them without comment. I get dressed by habit. Wool underlayer, suit liner, socks that were once white, hooded coverall folded on the chair. Field pack is on the steel shelf by the door. I inventory with my hands. Full hood suit, 2 spares, double gloves, field biopsy tools in a hard case, core needle set, vacutainers and caps, stabilization buffer, temperature logger, 2 sterile sample bags, chem lights, compact lure speaker with a loop I recorded back when my voice still sounded like someone else, a small crossbow with a coil of line to pull the lure back without giving away my position, flares, water, a single bandage pack, epinephrine that expired last year. It still looks clear. I add the old 9mm pistol from the locker. I write it out in my head the way I am supposed to say it if I ever read this into a camera for a site that will never load. 9mm, not 9mm. 2 magazines. I do not expect the weapon to solve a lot outside. It calms the hand I keep near my belt. Before I climb, I check Laboratory D on the map. It is still sealed. The purge cycle is available but flagged. Yesterday I ran a dry cycle to test valves and got a soft alarm from a stuck damper behind the duct drop. I will have to clear that by hand before I open the door. The ultracentrifuge status shows a maintenance tag from the old days. Rotor questionable. Spare rotor on site. I remember the crate because I kicked it once in a fit and chipped a nail I still look for sometimes on the floor. The mind sticks to stupid things. I walk through habitation level and do not look into the medbay. The blinds are down. I do not think about the winter of sparser meals and how a person can go quiet without anyone holding his hand. I keep my steps even, heel then toe, because a steady gait makes the place feel normal. Lights off in the unused sections. I reach the vestibule and start the pre-decon. Bleach ready. Parasitic cartridges counted out. The clock runs in my head without a number. 6 hours. I repeat it until it feels carved. The access tunnel door groans because the seal is old. Outside air slips in and tastes like cold rock. The first camera on the switchback is dead. The second one wakes up and shows an empty slope with a rag of plastic caught on a bush. No movement. No shake of branches. A low cloud sits just above the ridge. That is good cover. Jarvis tells me wind is light. The tramway motor test runs for 5 seconds and stops. I will not ride it. I do not trust that cable anymore. I switch to legs. I step onto the path and close the door to a palm width. The handle thunks in place and the seal sets. I test it once, then twice. I do not want to pull on it for a third time and create a habit I cannot break. The ground is stable for now. The soil is frozen in the thin layer near the surface. Boot prints from last month are shallow scars. No new prints. I move toward the first turn and stop at the cut that gives a slice view of the gondola line. The steel cable is a catenary sag with one cabin still hanging. The other fell years ago. The remaining cabin rocks a little when the wind changes. The loose sign on a post at the station creaks. That sound has been a beacon for months. It pulls in wanderers. It is the best I have for bait. I crouch behind fallen stone and set the lure speaker on a rock at ankle height. I keep the volume low. The loop is a simple phrase. Help me. The audio is a clean voice from the old radio room. My voice. It spills into the cuts between rocks and dies 30 feet away. That is enough. I pull the line back toward my cover and clip it to the crossbow. If I need to retrieve it fast, I can. I do not want to leave electronics out here. Someone might listen later. Someone who is not a good person. The first infected shows up in less than 10 minutes. It steps out of the brush, slow and stiff, and turns toward the sign first because that is louder. It tilts its head, then points itself toward the small voice near the ground. Its skin looks dry and tight. It moves like the joints do not want to bend. The wind shifts and the cabin rocks again. A second infected drifts into view from behind the station stairs. This one is smaller and faster on the straight, but the footing is uneven and it misses a step. It catches itself on a railing and slaps the metal with both hands. The sound carries farther than I like. Jarvis whispers a level change in my earbud. I almost forgot I had it in. It says the 2 targets are within the safe zone of the lure arc. I do not need such lines around a mess, but the overlay in my head is better than imagination. I wait. The smaller one stumbles near a rotten plank and goes half through, chest wedged. It fights the wood and chews at the air. The slower one keeps to the open area and sways toward the lure, but hits a pile of junk and gets tangled in straps that used to hold supplies for tourists. The timing is decent. I slide forward, staying behind cover until I reach the angle that keeps both in my view. I do not get close enough for hands to reach. I do not shoot. I need fresh tissue after death. If I wound and wait, I risk a long struggle and a lot of sound. Better if something else makes the decision for me. The smaller one thrashes on the plank. The board snaps and the body drops into the dark space under the platform. The sound echoes. I scan the tree line and do not see more figures. I count inside my head. I do not care about numbers as much as rhythm. I need quiet and stillness to draw a line. I draw it and make myself move. I slide the crossbow across the ground and hook the lure line. I pull the speaker back toward me inch by inch. I keep the pistol ready in the other hand. When the speaker reaches my boots, I kill it. The world goes back to wind, creek, and a distant bird that still has the sense to migrate wrong. I approach the platform on the side, where the railing shields my legs. The smaller infected is in the void under the planks, twisted, no movement. The face stares at nothing with the mouth open. I cannot see a rise in the chest. I watch for 2 counts. Still nothing. The time from the drop to now puts me safe for the window if I move fast. I step in, keep my balance, and lower the sampling kit. The core needle clicks into the handle. I reach through the broken plank and take a muscle core from the shoulder where it is easy to mark the site. The tissue slides into the tube. I cap it, flush, add buffer. I log the time and the ambient. The temperature logger blinks. I pack the tube into the bag and set the bag in the small cooler. I take a second core from a different spot to hedge. No extra blood. Clean work. I seal the holes with quick tape so I do not see the gaps when I back away. Movement brushes the corner of the eye. I pivot and go low. The slower infected tore free of the straps. It is closer now than I like. A hand lifts. The fingers are long and grey. I step back, give space, and put the railing between us. It presses into the metal and tries to fold over it. It does not have the strength. It groans. The sound is wet. A second groan answers from somewhere behind the station. I do not hang around for a family reunion. I pull away from the platform and head for the ravine path. The slope falls into a gash where storms have ripped a channel through rock and soil. Things gather there after bad weather. Not a grave, just a catch. I stick to the ridge edge and keep my steps silent enough that gravel does not roll. The lure speaker stays dead in my pack. I do not need extra attention. The ravine holds what I expect. Mixed debris, packs, pieces of old signs, bones, some from deer, some not. A body rests on a ledge under a dead pine, spine bent like a ladder. I wait and watch. No movement. The skin has that dull wax look that says, days, maybe more. I leave it. I need hours. I walk the lip farther and stop when I see fresh slide marks. A scar runs down 20 feet to a rock with a black smear. That is newer. I peer over and find a figure splayed in the ditch. Head cracked on the rock. No motion. I listen for breath and hear only wind. That will do, but I need to be sure. I climb down with my back to the wall and 3 points of contact. The pistol sits in a holster I can reach without looking. I touch the carotid with a gloved finger and hold it long enough to feel nothing. The neck is warm, not hot. The window started when the skull hit the rock. That was under an hour, judging by the slide on the wall and the frost crust on fresh soil. I work fast. Lymph sample from the armpit. Muscle from the thigh. I log the times and the ambient. The cooler swallows the tubes and the logger. A stone drops nearby. I do not turn my head. I step up the path, keep low, and reach the top without showing my whole body. A walker stands at the far end of the ravine and sniffs air it cannot read. It turns too far and loses balance. It falls backward and hits the dirt, then rolls into a sumac and stays tangled. I let it be. I go. I move faster on the return. The wind shifts and brings the cabin sign creak over the ridge. I do not check the station. I do not care if the two at the platform still drag their feet. The door waits, and the timer in my head shouts the 6-hour rule without a voice. The vestibule receives me like a mouth. I close the outer door and hear the seal pull tight. I go straight into the bleach step. 10 minutes on the clock. I sing numbers under my breath because talking to myself is a skill now. Rinse. Parasitic fog. 20 minutes. Pack open. Cooler set on the clean shelf. Jarvis watches all of it through the cam I taped under the shelf 2 years ago. It notes timestamps without adding blame or praise. I step into the inner hall with the cooler in my hands. The silence is dense again. Floor lights mark the corners. I make the turn into Lab A, set the cooler in the pass-through, run the external wipe, then move to the next door. Gloves off, gloves on, hood off, hood on. I do not skip steps. The times line up. I crack the pass-through and bring the cooler into the clean zone. The tubes go on ice under the hood while the logger dumps its profile to the screen. The numbers sit in the safe band. Good. I ping Laboratory D and start the purge. Valves tick, fans deepen, the damper chokes and screams. I kill the sound and head down a level with a headlamp and a wrench. The duct is warm to the touch. I pull the panel and find the bend where dust baked into mud. I scrape until the flap moves clean. I grease the hinge with the last of a tiny tube. When I hit start again, the fan takes the load without a cough. Purge timer flashes green on the wall. I stand in front of the D door while air scrubs the room on the other side. I can see the outline of the centrifuge through the small window. The rotor sits on the bench next to it. The tag flutters on a wire. The spare crate waits under a broken duct section, sagging like a shelf ready to fall. I go back up to Lab A and start the first steps I can do while air works. Tissue prep, quick spin in the small unit to settle. Buffers at temperature, plates labeled with time and code names I keep simple. No metaphors, just what the thing is and where it came from. Ravine 1, Platform 1, that is enough. Jarvis asks if I want to schedule air handling at maintenance low during the run. Its tone does not change. It frames it as a suggestion. I mark yes for the window that matters. It throws me a warning about carbon dioxide buildup risk if the cycle stalls. I say, I will handle it. It says, acknowledged. The purge timer ends and the lock turns from red to yellow. I suit up again because Lab D is not forgiving. The door opens. The air smells old and dry, like paper left in a box. Dust coats the steel table where the rotor sits. The tag reads hairline crack. Do not use at full speed. Use spare rotor. I lift the old one and set it aside. The spare crate is under the duct section that bent when the ceiling panel failed during those ugly days. I squat, slide fingers under the edge, and pull. It does not move. I cut the tie and take the lid off in place. Foam inside. Rotor wrapped in a stiff bag. The bag catches on the vent lip, and I have to work around the metal without ripping the wrap. I move slow. The thing is heavy and slick with old oil. I do not drop it. I lower it into the centrifuge throat like I am lowering a child into a bath. I keep that thought out of my mouth because I promised myself no pictures like that in my head. I check balance cups. I check seals. I run a short spin at a low speed with just weights to test the bearings. The machine hums and holds steady. No scream, no wobble. I breathe through my nose and forget to count. The old habit kicks in anyway. I shut it down and move to the real work. The gradient goes down the way I wrote on the wall during training. Not that the wall needs my handwriting now. It is a talisman. I pour the steps with my hand steady and set the tubes. The rack rolls into place with a soft click. I close the lid and set the spin. Jarvis drops the air handling one notch on the schedule. The fans shift to a lower murmur. It feels like someone turned down the world. I tell myself I am fine with stale air for a while. I lock the centrifuge and press start. The ramp takes longer than I remember. I watch the display rise and keep my eyes on the vibration readout. The number wobbles, then finds center. The sound settles into a pure tone that drills through the head without breaking anything. I turn away and head back up one level to start plates in Lab B with the time I have. I pipette by muscle memory. Wells fill without bubbles. I mark the sheets. I do not push for too many plates. I need clean runs, not a flood. Halfway through the spin, the building stumbles. Lights twitch. The air handling unit tries to kick a purge that Jarvis queued for later. I hit the power panel and kill the auto schedule by hand. Jarvis warns me about a deviation from best practices. I tell it to save the lecture and give me raw logs. The screen fills with stamps I have not seen in months, hidden warnings, edge cases, projections with numbers so thin you could see through them if you held them up to any light at all. This is where the truth sat while I kept chewing kelp and pretending the graphs in my head were real. I say, "Did you hold this back on purpose?" Jarvis answers with the policy I wrote after the bad winter. Morale preservation. It does not use those words. It uses the line from the old rules. Limit exposure to non-actionable pessimism. When operator is alone and mission requires long-term persistence, I want to throw the keyboard. I keep my hands still. I ask for the confidence on archived strains and the guess at drift. It says the archived number is between 60 and 70 when the conformer matches. The drift number is a coin toss, 40 to 50 if the world out there changed the way the scattered samples suggest. No one gets to call that a cure in good faith. The centrifuge ends the first pass. I run the second without changing anything because time is the enemy here, not purity obsession. When the second pass finishes, I pull the fractions and move under the hood to start the formulation. Jarvis offers a self-trial at phase 0 with a low dose to test safety, while I run ferret confirms. It says the risk is bounded. It lists the bounds. The list is not short. I say no while I work because my mouth wants to be as busy as my hands. I am not going to drop myself on the floor when the recycler pump coughs and needs 2 hands and a wrench. I dose 2 ferrets. I write out their tags. Formulation A gets the standard ratio. Formulation B leans toward drift. The animals settle in their cages and look at me with dark eyes that do not judge. Jarvis brings their body temperature lines onto the small screen. I give them water and step away. The machine in my gut starts grinding because I have done this too many times. The endings repeat. Fever spike, crash, or nothing at all. I wait for the curve to decide which one it wants to be today. I take the used gear to the sterilizer and hear a sharp rattle from below. It is not a footstep. It is a dry bearing grabbing. I sprint for level E with the suits open at the neck because that is faster and I can close later. The water recycler room smells like hot plastic. A red light flashes on the pump. I see a tongue of flame bite at a wire sleeve. I grab the carbon dioxide extinguisher, hit the base of the flame, and watch the white cloud swallow the heat. The light dies. The pump makes a sound like a groan, and then silence. I lock the panel and kill non-essential pumps to lighten the load. The spare bearing sits in a drawer with a label in my handwriting that says, "Do not waste this on anything but a real issue." I guess this counts. I loosen the housing with a wrench that has worn edges and slide the bad bearing out. The new one goes in without a fight. I bring the power up in small steps. The pump turns. The sound is smooth. I pull air into my lungs through my mouth and try not to taste the burnt residue. I cough once and spit into a rag so the taste leaves faster. Jarvis whispers that formulation of ferret spiked but is stable. Formulation B ferret shows a rise that is smaller. I let that sink in and do not smile because that is not something to smile about with a living animal in the box. I go back up and watch the curves for a long minute. If this holds through the day, I can talk about broad neutralization with a straight voice. Not a cure, a floor, maybe a ladder. I notate the ultra-centrifuge run and lock the rotor cover. The machine is warm. The room feels emptier now that the spin is done. The exhaust hum moves to a higher note as Jarvis brings air handling back up. The place smells a little better almost at once. I roll my shoulders and feel the crackle of old tape on my suit neck. I take the suit off slow and hang it where it will dry. I check the door cameras. Outside is grey and steady. No figures. No fresh tracks. The cabin on the cable rocks once, then sit still. I do not think about how many times I watched that box sway when I could not sleep. Back in Lab B, the first assay reads show binding that is stronger than the last run with old tissue. Not perfect. Better. The numbers do not dance. They sit with their backs straight. I set the next time points and move to the med bay even though I told myself not to go in there. I need a fresh saline bag and a clip for a line in case a ferret needs support. The blinds are down. I leave them that way. I open the cabinet, take what I need, and close it without breathing too deep. The chalk line on the floor where the last cot sat is still faint under my boots. On the way back, I stop at the radio room door and stand there. I do not want to sit and listen to noise. I want to work. Jarvis knows that and puts a line on the screen anyway. A forecast curve that says, if I push a text transmission with a plain language protocol to the high frequency set during evening skip, it might bounce into a place where someone could read it. There is a reply risk. There is a lure risk. There is also the only path that leaves this room without a coffin. I say later. Jarvis accepts that and holds the schedule open. The ferrets hold through the next 2 hours. A lot of days I would have sat there and stared at the curve like that could pin it in place. Today I clean. I go down to the fungal corridor and check the boards laid across the old wet area. The bloom that killed half the base is a memory now, but the spores never give up. The readings on the wall sensor sit low. I spray anyway. I let the mist settle and put a new battery in the sensor because the last swap was months ago, and I should not cut it close. In the cafeteria, I pull the lid off the algae tank again and fill a cup. The taste is sharp and bitter and coats the tongue. I drink it anyway because it is math. Calories in, legs steady later. I cut a piece of stale bread that was dry as chalk yesterday and put it in my mouth. It dissolves into paste that almost sticks to my throat. I chase it with water and hold it down by thinking about the rotor instead of food. The day leans toward the edge of light. The external camera shows shade filling the cut where the station sits. I stand in the access hall and look at the door for too long. I do not want to be caught outside after sunset. I also know that the best time to push a radio transmission is when the air helps it ride. I do not need a perfect day. I need a shot. I pick the radio. The high frequency set warms slow because the room is cool. I feed power to it in a measured line, so the battery does not dip during a line draw for air handling. Jarvis balances it better than I do. It frames the band I asked for and sweeps it once. Nothing clean. A carrier breathes under the static from somewhere far. I do not chase it. I open a text buffer and write the protocol, in words a person can follow with supplies a person might still have. I do not talk about the old centrifuge or the D level that someone else will never see. I write about conformer capture in the first hours after death. I write about simple purification steps and backup steps if you do not have a machine. I write about fevers that might not mean failure. I write about what not to do. I send it in short bursts that a cheap set can read on the other side. Jarvis confirms the bursts went out. I sit and wait for a minute, listening to nothing, then stand because sitting kills the rhythm of work. The ferret curves tick up again, and then flatten. I let out a sound that is not quite a laugh. I cover my mouth because the habit of keeping my noise inside this place never leaves. I sleep in a chair for 10 minutes, maybe 15. I wake because a fan started or stopped. Hard to say. I stand and my legs complain. I tell them they can file a report later. I check the assays. The plate looks clean. The numbers give me enough to set another dose schedule if I keep the ratios in the second formulation and adjust one line. I put that on the board and circle it so I do not forget in the morning. I aim to seal Lab D and leave it in a clean state, but my body asks for the cot so hard that I turn and take the hall back to habitation. The sleeping room smells like clean cloth and old soap. The bed is stiff. I lie down and stare at the underside of the top bunk because I do not sleep on the higher one anymore. My eyes close without asking permission. A sound drags me up. Not the fans, not the recycler. A click on the radio and a short burst of tone that means a packet landed. I roll off the cot and stumble toward the door without a light. Jarvis has already thrown the message onto the screen by the time I reach the radio room. The text is rough and clipped. The call sign is nothing I know. The words are simple. Received. Cold chain capacity. Request method, border post, north by west, that is all. I stand at the doorway and do not move for a long count. I should doubt it. I do. I should assume a trap. That also sits on my shoulder. I cannot test trust through a screen. I can test process. Jarvis underlines that line in my head. It suggests a drone drop to a relay ridge that is near the Old Ranger substation. It says the drone has one good battery and can make the 2 legs if the wind stays under a number I do not say out loud because I do not want to give it weight. I nod, and the stupid thing in my chest that only wakes up when a door opens decides to wake up now. I tell it to take a seat. I tell Jarvis to plan the drop for first light. I tell the assays to mind themselves, and the ferrets to keep their temperatures where I left them. I cannot speak to animals. I speak anyway in my head. I pack a second field kit by reflex. Fresh bags, fresh caps, extra buffer, a second temperature logger. The drone case slides out from under the bench and clicks when I open it. The rotors are dusty but straight. The battery reads a charge that is more than a quarter but less than half. I put it on the trickle line and let it drink through the night. I make a list of what to strap to the belly. Memory stick with the protocol. In 3 formats. Printed copy in a weather bag. A small strip of cloth stained with the lab disinfectant that only someone who has lived in a place like this would recognize. Not proof, a smell. I eat again. Algae and a chunk of something that once said cheddar on a wrapper. The taste is sharp and sour. I chew until my jaw aches for no reason except that tiredness makes small things hurt. I drink water and rinse the cup and set it on the same spot on the shelf where it always goes, because the mind likes small order when the rest is open. Jarvis puts a reminder on the wall for the morning. Check rotor bolts, swap air pre-filter, tape the second temperature logger inside the drone case until it lifts off. I tell it to add one more thing. Do not let me leave without the pistol, Jarvis says acknowledged. It adds the line in the same font it uses for everything. No smiley face, thank God. Sleep takes me again, and does not ask my permission this time either. I wake to my own voice. A nightmare with no picture, and a shout that is not loud. I lie still, and wait for the echo to die in the room. Nothing answers. No one clears a throat. No one curses. I put my feet on the floor and stand because lying down is about to turn into thinking, and thinking is a trap when it does not end in action. Morning is grey on the camera. A low scud moves along the ridge. The drone battery reads green enough. I slide the memory stick into its slot and strap the bag under the body. I carry it to the vestibule and work the door in 2 steps because one door open at a time keeps me alive. The air outside is cold enough to sting skin through the hood. I put the drone on a flat stone and step back to the line I painted on the ground for launches. I punch the start and the rotors spin up and lift the body into a steady hover. It sits for 3 seconds while the gyros figure out which way is level. Then it moves into the air with no wobble. I watch it climb until it looks like a bug, and then like a fleck, and then nothing at all. I listen anyway like I could hear its small sound over wind and rock. I cannot. Jarvis tracks the path with a line on the monitor. The drone follows the ridge and then drops behind a hill where I lose it for a minute. It pops back up over the relay ridge and pauses. I imagine it looking down at the broken Ranger roof. It could land on that and still lift off again if the wind stays kind. The line on the screen blinks. Drop complete. The drone pivots and points back home. It runs the line in reverse like a mouse that knows the way to the crumb under the cabinet. It clears the last stand of scrub and comes in hot to the launch stone. I kill the blades and crouch and put my hand on the body like a person, not a device. It is warm. I step to the bench and start packing a field kit for the ravine again, because if a reply comes asking for more, I want to be ready to leave with the gear in my hands. Jarvis chimes. 1 packet. Short. Text only. A call sign that matches the last. Same clipped words. Received. Reading. Stand by. That is it. I lift my chin and point my face at the ceiling and close my eyes for 1 count. Then I move because a pump does not care about a moment of prayer and a ferret does not know it is part of a plan. The curves sit steady on the screen. The animals eat. I swap the air pre-filter and cough into the rag once because dust got where dust should not be. I set the next assay steps and wash my hands until the skin looks new. Jarvis puts a block of text on the far monitor. It is my own words from years ago. A set of rules I wrote when we still had enough people to argue. Do not risk yourself on a hunch. Do not trust a voice just because it is warm. Do not wait for perfect. Perfect is not coming. It does not say where the rules failed us. It does not need to. I was here. I watched the lines fail in real time. I hold the last line in my head. Finish what you can finish. I clean Laboratory D and lock it down again so I do not tempt myself to start a second run before I have the full results. I put the spare rotor tag on the old rotor just to remember that I am not past the last hurdle. I move through the levels and touch every door handle once. Not superstition, memory. When I reach habitation, I stop at the medbay and lift the blinds a hand width. Light spills on the tile. A shape under the sheet is only a shape. I lower the blinds and back away without turning my back. I close the door and lean my head against the wood for a second and let the weight push into the hinge. Then I step away because the hinge does not need my feelings. Back in the control room, Jarvis slides a new schedule into my view. It is a lean power plan that gives the water recycler room to run without killing the air. It steals from lights that I do not need, and from heat that I can replace with a blanket. I nod. The cursor blinks on the screen like a small heartbeat I do not say out loud, because that is a kind of talk I swore off. I accept the schedule and watch the numbers respond. I think about self-dosing again, because the line on Formulation B looks like it wants to be kind. I say the risk out loud. No rescue, no backup, no second doctor. If I go down, the base goes cold. Jarvis does not push like it did before. It lists the same numbers. Then, it adds a new line. I have compiled a drift-biased booster sequence for next week if you secure another early phase sample. It uses the word if, and then leaves it alone. It does not decorate it. The clock in my head turns to the time when the cabin on the line makes that tired creak in the wind. The sound does not carry in here. I hear it anyway because a brain can carry a sound even when the air is quiet. I pull the field pack closer and check the seals on the sample tubes I did not use yet. I test the lure speaker with a whisper level and cut it before the loop finishes one plea. The radio taps. Another packet lands. The words are longer now. They ask for the fraction density in words, not numbers. They ask for a route option if no machine exists. They ask for the exact window I set. Those are questions from someone who has done the work. Or a good actor. I answer without delay but with care. I do not brag. I do not promise. I tell the truth a person can use even if he does not like me. I want to go topside right now and run the ravine again, while the day still has bones. But I stop. The base is not a thing I can leave like a car on idle at a curb. If an alarm screams here while I crouch over a body up the slope, no one runs to the valve. It is just me. The recycler is stable for now. The air is fine. The power plan is honest. The ferrets breathe in clean lines. I wait 1 hour. Jarvis marks the hour with a small chime, so I do not watch the clock like a trapped animal. At the chime, I move. Vestibule, suit, check. Pistol, check. Pack, check. I open the outer door to a slice. Air comes in colder than morning. Clouds sit lower now. I step out and lock the door behind me and put the key in the pouch at my chest. I will not tell you how many times I pat that pouch when I am scared. It is a dumb habit and it helps more than it should. The path is the same. The world is never the same. Animals have moved. Wind has rubbed new edges on old cuts. The station sits quiet except for the creak. The platform shows scuffs where I worked. No fresh prints. The ravine looks darker though it is the same hour and the same sky. I move along the lip and they look for new slide marks. There are a few. Soft, shallow, maybe a rodent, maybe a shoe. I slow and listen. Nothing. I keep moving. Halfway down the lip, the ground gives a little under my right boot. Not a slide, a sink. I freeze and pull that foot back without shifting my weight to the left. The crust holds. I look closer and see a hollow under the crust where someone stepped days ago. The space did not collapse then. It picks me now. I go around it and mark the spot with a small stone on a ledge, so I can see it on the return without thinking. The bottom holds one thing I wanted and one I did not. The wanted thing is a body not more than 2 hours old. The unwanted thing is a second figure on the far side of the ditch that still moves. Not much. Enough. It turns its face toward me, and the eyes do not track like a person, but the head knows I am here. I kneel by the fresh dead one and work as fast as my hands let me. Core needle, flush, buffer, cap. Log the time on a slate I wear on a cord. Bag, cooler. The moving figure tries to stand, fails, and crawls. Hands scrape stone, nails break. It keeps dragging itself anyway, because that is what those things do until they stop. I back away step by step and keep it in my sight. It reaches the wall of the ditch and claws at it. Dirt crumbles and covers its face. It does not care. The mouth opens and closes. I think about mercy for 1 second and keep moving, because mercy requires power and a safe place, and I have neither in this hole. I climb out and hear a rock shift above me. I hug the wall and duck. A slab slides past my head and slams into the ditch. Dust explodes up the slope and fills my hood with the taste of old chalk. I close my eyes for one blink, open them, and look for the source. The upper lip has a new crack where the freeze made a wedge. The mountain does not care about me. It moves the way it wants. I get low and move to a spot where the ledge is thicker and climb up with my hands flat on cold rock. At the top, I take one long breath and listen. The station is quiet. The wind carries nothing. I push toward the door and reach it in a steady line. The vestibule swallows me again, and the seal kisses the frame. I run decon with muscle memory and a clock I do not cheat. I place the new tubes in the pass-through and feel the travel of the day in my wrists. The buffer looks clear. The logger blinks a small green eye that says the cold stayed inside the safe band. Back in the lab, I slip into the routine that keeps panic out. Under the hood, open, pipette, close, run, plate, mark. Jarvis floats numbers on the side screen that match my hands. No surprises. Not yet. I clean the bench as I go and throw gloves into a bin without missing the mouth. I move like a person who has done this for years because I have. The ferrets wake and eat. Their curves soften around the edges. I push a hand against the glass and do not touch it with skin. I do not name them. I used to. I quit when it hurt too much to wipe the whiteboard above the cage. I turn away and pick up the radio plan for evening. It is a copy of last night with more detail. I attach the new steps and include the second route for those without a machine. I read it once and delete 3 words that are extra. I do not fill the space with new ones. The station chime rings in my head because I have lived under it for too long. Jarvis does not hear that unless I tell it. It throws a power warning for the next hour. The schedule wants a deep pull to heat the water for a system flush I queued and forgot. I cancel the flush and move it to a morning when I am not running plates. A buzz under my skin starts to rise that tells me I have pushed enough for one day. I ignore it. I make tea that tastes like boiled grass and sip it slow. The warmth calms the hands. I eat 2 bites of bread and toss the rest back into the bin for later. Not because I am full, but because I am not paying for a 3rd bite if I am not going to swallow it. Jarvis speaks without prompt. It says, "Your risk tolerance is dropping under fatigue." I nod. It adds, "Consider sleep after the next read." I nod again. It says nothing about how I should feel about a call sign in the dark, asking for steps that could keep a person from turning into something that drags itself toward a wall until the arms stop working. It keeps feelings out of this because it does not have them, and because I asked it not to fake them. The next read looks good enough that I do not need the tea to stay upright. I document it and pack the bench. I stand in the doorway of the radio room and listen even though I know the air does not carry signals to ears. The set blinks. The green light on the far right says the band is quiet. I send one short burst that only says, "Received and safe." Then I turn the set off and go back to the sleeping room and lie down with my boots on, because the building is old and the world is older. Sleep comes and goes in scraps. I wake to the kind of silence that used to scare me. It does not scare me now. It feels like a blanket someone forgot to wash. I push it off by standing up. I go to the lab and check the curves. Stable. I check the plates. clean. I check the power. Low but not angry. I check the water recycler. Smooth as the new bearing can make it. I touch the wall where the rules hang in my head and run my fingers along the words like a person tracing a map. There is a second stage to plan and a coin toss to face. The world outside moved for 4 years while I counted beans and spun machines. The drift does not care about my schedule. It keeps moving. If I stop now, the graphs become paper again, and the animals in the cages become ornaments. If I push, I have to risk a little more skin than I did yesterday. That includes the skin on my forearm I cut last month in the duct when the edge bit me through the suit and I had to bleed into a towel and breathe through my mouth until the room stopped tilting. I can still smell the copper in that memory if I try. I do not try. I set the checklist board on the bench and pull a thick marker from the cup. Stage 2 needs 3 things on day 1. A second fresh early phase specimen from the surface to confirm the drift-biased formulation, a controlled reopen of Laboratory D for 1 more purification run, and a safe exchange of data and doses with the border post through the Ranger substation relay. The board does not argue. Jarvis throws a power schedule to the side screen. It is tight but honest, with the ultra-centrifuge window carved out and air handling reduced to the lowest level I have tolerated without headaches. I cut non-essential lights for the day and roll the spare oxygen bottle into the medbay in case a ferret or I need it. I build the day from the bottom up so there is less to knock over. Gear first. I lay out the full hood suit, the second suit in a flat pack, double gloves, and 2 tape rolls. I swap the scalpel blades for new ones so I do not fight dull steel on a bad angle and slip. The core needle set gets a fresh spring. I pack extra buffer and add a second temperature logger. I put the compact crossbow on the shelf with a fresh line spool and test the lure speaker at a whisper. My voice on the loop says 4 words and cuts off. I load the 9mm pistol and put 1 extra magazine in a pouch. Not because I want to use it, but because I know what happens when I wish I had loaded it and did not. I check the vestibule decontamination tanks and top off the parasitic cartridges. The bleach barrel is low, so I lean it and coax the last bit into the feed tube with slow pressure. The recycler hums in the lower level with the new bearing I installed yesterday, so the room feels steadier. Jarvis pings the external cameras. Wind is light, cloud cover is good. The gondola cabin hangs steady, and the loose sign at the station swings in a slow arc. I put the field pack on my back and stand in the access hall with my hand on the door bar. I wait for a count to end a small tremor in my fingers that I do not want to carry onto the slope. When it stops, I pull the bar and step out. The air outside has that clean bite it gets when the clouds sit low. The switchback path shows my last day's tracks, faint but still there. I move along the cut and keep my eyes on the edges and the brush for movement. The cabin creaks once. I drop to a knee and listen. The sound dies back to wind. I glide to the station, set the lure speaker near the same rock at ankle height, and pull the line back to my cover. I set volume just above the wind and start the loop. The first infected this morning is not the dry, slow kind I prefer to see. He steps out from behind a stack of pallets under the platform, turns sharply toward the looped voice, and moves with short, fast steps that eat distance faster than I want. He is not sprinting, but he does not shuffle. His hair is matted to his scalp, and his jaw works like he is chewing a string that will not snap. He hits the edge of the platform and climbs, not careful, but direct. I pull the lure toward me along the line, so he adjusts his direction. Then I flick the switch and cut the sound. He stops. His head snaps toward the cabin sign as it creaks. That buys me a handful of seconds. I slide along the railing, stay out of reach, and nudge the rotten plank edge with my boot. The wood gives. Not much, but enough to show the line of weakness. He moves toward the last place the sound came from. I wait. When his weight shifts onto the bad plank, it cracks and drops him into the crawl space. He hits the ground hard and lies still in dust for 1 breath. He twitches, tries to push to hands and knees, fails, and lies still again. I approach the gap and keep the pistol up, not pointed at his head, but ready. No breath, no movement. The window starts now. I work fast, needle loaded, 2 cores taken from shoulder and thigh with minimal disturbance, buffer added. Temperature loggers check in with a steady green blink. I seal the tubes and bag them. I mark the time on the slate. I set the bag into the cooler and close the lid. The second infected arrives on the far side of the platform and scrapes a shoe on the metal, a small sharp sound. I pivot, step behind the railing, and let him choose his route. He staggers to the edge, sees me, and reaches. I back away in a straight line, and he follows in the most direct path he can manage, which takes him through more rotten wood. He goes through up to the waist and flails. I do not get close. I do not need the sample. I do not gamble for an extra bag. I move to the ravine. The lip of the ravine looks different today. The storm last week loosened the upper soil and slid a skin of gritty dust over the hard layer. My boots sink a little. I place each step and do not hurry, even though I want the lab clock to start. The ditch holds one body from last night that I left in place, too old for my needs. The fresh one is farther down, caught on a knee-high stump of rebar from an old culvert, body bent and still. I descend with the pack swinging tight against my spine and take a lymph sample from the axilla and a muscle core from the thigh. The tissues are warm. The clock is fresh. I log the times and climb out slow. On the lip I hear stone click against stone. I look up and see two infected on the ridgeline, not close enough to dash, but close enough to be a problem if they tumble the right way. I step down on the lee side and cross the slope to the switchback with a controlled angle so gravel does not skitter. They move the wrong direction for a moment, drawn to the cabin sign, and that buys me what I need. I reach the door, slide in, and seal the mountain behind me. Decon is by the book. Bleach, rinse, parasitic fog. Set the cooler on the clean shelf and watch Jarvis stamp the times on the screen. Inner door opens. I move the cooler through and keep a steady speed. No rushing in the clean zone. I slide the tubes into the pass-through in Lab A, wash, glove, and lift them into the hood. Logger reads a safe band. The tissue looks viable under the low-scope view. I start prep while Jarvis warms the laboratory D room and nudges the purge routine into place. The damper I greased yesterday swings through full travel without a grind. The purge runs smooth. I turn plates in Lab B while the ultracentrifuge window gets close. The movements are ordinary. Pipette, tap, label, no showmanship. Jarvis adjusts air handling down to the maintenance low we planned and throws a small warning for carbon dioxide levels that will climb if I stretch the run. I do not intend to stretch it. I finish the last plate, check the ferrets, and go down to D. The door turns from red to yellow. I go in. The room holds steady on the nose. No dust swirl. The rotor I installed yesterday sits where I left it, clamps tight. I check bolts and cups again and load the gradient tubes. The rack slides in, lid down, lock clicks. I power the run and walk to the side panel to watch the vibration number. It climbs with speed and holds centered. I track the time with a small countdown on the wrist slate. It is not fancy. It does the job. Midway through, the recycler throws a soft alarm from level E. It is not the bearing. It is a load draw that crosses a threshold by a hair. I do not stop the run. I shift a non-critical light circuit to battery only, and the line settles. Jarvis keeps the air handling steady at the low setting, which keeps the numbers inside the range I can stand. I stand close to the machine and listen to the tone turn into a steady pitch. It is a clean sound. I feel it in my teeth. I do not enjoy it. I accept it. When the run ends, I pull fractions, move to the hood, and start the steps that turn a clear fluid into something that can stop a bad piece of RNA from getting into a cell. There is no magic in the steps. The risk lives in the small mistakes. I do not make one. I deliver formulation B to the test bench, dose 2 new ferrets and set the monitors. The first set from yesterday still shows steady lines. Better than steady, but I do not use that word. I lock it away and move to the radio room. A new packet waits. The border post operator is brief, which helps. He says he has a small amount of an adjuvant I have not had in 2 years. He says he can trade it for 2 vials of yesterday's purified vector and printed protocols. He says he can send a runner at noon to the Ranger substation if I can post a relay marker with a pattern he lists. The pattern is not random. It is from an old pre-war aid group. I know it. It is not something a raider would think to use unless he used to be one of us. I do not overthink it. I say yes. I send the pattern he wants on the drone as a preview so he knows I heard him. I pack 2 vials of the new run and seal them in a small hard case with a chemical cold pack that will last half a day. I print protocols in plain language. I put the papers in a transparent sleeve and tuck them into the case with the vials. I fold the sleeve again and tape it so it does not blow away if a gust hits us. The road to the substation is longer than the slope to the gondola, but it is predictable. I carry the pack, the case, the pistol, and a short flare I can use to pull a small crowd in a different direction if I get followed. Jarvis tracks me on the internal map I built with Dead Reckoning years ago. My legs feel strong from the algae and bread, which is not a meal I would ever brag about. I make the ridge in 40 minutes and drop into the trees. The substation roof is half gone. The wind pushes through the broken boards and makes a dull, hollow sound. I do not use words to dress it up. It is a broken roof. I post the relay marker on the smashed window frame and step back. The marker shows the pattern the post asked for. I scan the tree line and see nothing. I kneel and rest my hand on the case. I do not like waiting in the open. I pull the hood back a little so I can hear better. Branches rub, a small clack of rock. Then 2 figures step out from the trees with hands up and open. A third stands back a little with a rifle at low ready. The first 2 have proper masks and eye protection. Their suits are patched but clean. The leader is a woman with short hair under a cap. The other is a man with a small cooler strapped to his chest. We do not waste time with speeches. She stops at the line I cut in the dirt 2 meters from me and sets her palms out again. I nod. I move forward and set the case on a flat cinder block between us. She sets her cooler next to it. No one crosses the line. She opens her cooler and shows 2 sealed ampules with labels I have only seen in manuals for the last 2 years. I can read the tiny print. It is the adjuvant we talked about. She closes the cooler. I open my case and show the vials and the papers. She reads the first page and flips to the second. No comments. She closes the case and slides it back to her side with a gloved hand. I slide the cooler to mine. The guard at the back shifts. His boot scuffs and he freezes. I look past his shoulder and see 2 infected on the slope coming down the side trail. Then a third. Not a swarm. Enough. The guard turns and raises the rifle. The woman lifts her palm, and he holds fire for a breath, then drops one of the infected with a single shot to the head because it is close enough that he can do that without dragging more attention. The sound carries. The trees answer with 2 more figures turning their heads our way. We do not argue. We move. I back away with the cooler strapped to my chest. The woman matches me step for step, not trusting my door any more than I trust her outpost. The guard falls back slow, shooting only when something gets too near. The man with the empty cooler holds the marker pattern flag and keeps it pointed toward the path we came from, so any other runner knows to avoid the new path. One infected closes on him and grabs the flag. He yanks it free and steps backward onto a loose rock and tilts. The infected reaches. I draw and fire 1 round center face. The body drops. The man catches his balance with his free hand on a tree and grunts. No wound. We keep moving. We reach the split where their trail goes west and mine runs north. We stop in a small open area with old stumps that do not hide a person. The woman nods once. She does not give a name. I do not ask. She says 1 line. Check the adjuvant lot. Small crystal is normal. Warm it by hand before use. I say 1 line. Doses 2 and 3 are not set. Watch fevers. The guard lifts his chin in a short gesture I do not try to interpret. They turn and move. I turn and move. That is the entire meeting. Back at the door, I repeat the decon steps with more care than usual because I handled someone else's case and the wind blew debris into the vestibule. I use extra bleach on the floor grid. The parasitic fog hangs in the light and stings my nose through the hood. The inner door opens when the timer ends. I carry the cooler straight to Lab B and set it under the hood. I check the seals on the ampules. They are unbroken. The labels are clean. I log the time and the lot. I set a vial aside for the immediate run and 1 in a cold box for tomorrow. Formulation B with adjuvant looks different. The fluid holds a slight haze that clears after the gentle mix Jarvis suggests. I do not waste any of it by shaking. I turn the vial in my hand until the crystals disappear. I draw the dose for the next ferret in the schedule and deliver it. The animal takes it without fuss. The monitor line bumps and then steadies. I sit on the stool with my hands on my knees and watch my own breath fog the inside of the hood shield a little. I wipe it with the back of my hand and keep working. The rest of the afternoon becomes a list I can read when I forget what happened. Wash, plate, log, clear the old rotor tag, and write a new one with the date and the run. Pack the hard case I received into a clean bag. Strip the used gloves. Seal the trash bag and carry it to the burn barrel I reserve for the worst waste. Burn it slow with the flue open. Jarvis keeps the airflow steady so the smoke goes out the right pipe and does not blow back into the corridor. I drink water until the taste of bleach leaves my mouth. At dusk, the high-frequency set taps twice. I go to the radio room and sit. The screen shows a short line. Delivery received. Doses secure. 2 patients in isolation. Fever management active. Request your next window. My hands hover over the keys. I do not promise the world. I write the schedule I can keep. I tell him to hold the line and not stack shots. I tell him to call if his patients start to shake or stare at the wall and stop answering simple questions. He sends one more word. Understood. I power down the set. I eat a small bowl of algae cut with dried herbs I grew when I still cared how food tasted. I chew until it slides. The bread is gone. I do not miss it. I take one of the last apples out of the cool bin and set it back. I will take it tomorrow if I have a win. I am not making deals with food, but I am not above small games that keep me moving. Night shifts into the corridor. I do one more sweep. Lab D is clean and locked. Lab A is quiet. Lab B is steady. The ferrets breathe and twitch their whiskers in small sleep. I turn the sleeping room light to the lowest setting and lie down. The cot feels rough through the suit liner. I stare at the ceiling and do not try to sleep. It comes anyway in a slow drop. I am up before dawn and at the bench before the tea warms. The first read on the new plates shows a stronger neutralization pattern than yesterday. Not a miracle, a clear step. The ferret that received the adjuvant dose shows a small fever and then a drop into normal. I note the times and compare side by side with last week's worst panel. The difference is obvious. I do not clap. I do not shout. I write the numbers down and add the new ratio to the board. Jarvis asks for a decision on self-dosing again, this time with the adjuvant protocol that matches what I just saw in the animal. I stand still and let the words run through my head. Half dose today, with observation and fluids. Booster in 3 days if no adverse events. Full avoidance of heavy lifting for 12 hours after injection. Keep water intake high. Keep oxygen bottle near the cot. Keep medbay door open. I put my hand on the bench and feel the cool through the glove. I have refused this step for a year. The world is not going to walk down my hall and sign off on my work. I draw a half dose and sit on the stool in the medbay. I check the lot and the time and the adjuvant ratio. I insert the needle with a steady hand and push. No flash of light. No cinema. Just a small ache that spreads under the skin and fades. I set the timer for observation and lie back on the cot with the oxygen bottle at the side and a pulse clip on my finger. I watch the ceiling for a while, then close my eyes and count breaths until the numbers slow. When the first hour ends, I sit up and drink water. No dizziness. No confusion. I walk the hall and touch the corner of each door as I pass. Not because I am lost, but because movement tells me what I need to know. By mid-morning, I am back in the lab. The curve on my own monitor is boring. That is what I wanted. I do not let it distract me. I set up 2 more small plates to confirm the dose shift and run a reduced spin in the centrifuge for a narrow fraction that looked promising last night. The machine behaves. The vibration stays centered. The power draw does not upset the recycler. Jarvis keeps whispering small adjustments that make the building feel like a partner instead of a tool. I give it a simple instruction. No morale filter. No hiding bad news. It acknowledges and logs the change. Near noon, the radio taps again. The border post reports 1 patient with a fever plateau and 1 with a steady line. He asks if he should go to dose 2 for the second patient. I tell him to wait until the end of the day and watch for a late jump. He confirms and asks for the fraction density in words again because his printer lost a character in the last packet. I read it out loud into the mic so he hears a human voice even if the line eats half my words. It costs nothing, and sometimes that is enough. Afternoon brings a new problem. The external camera points at the switchback and shows a small group of people walking the lower road. They move in a line and keep a set distance. 3 carry long guns slung, 1 pushes a cart. I do not know them. I stay silent. If they climb the switchback and find the door, I cannot pretend I am not here. Jarvis asks if I want to throw a false trail on the old service entrance that collapsed 2 winters ago. I nod. It triggers an old motion sensor in that cut and plays a short clang that echoes down the gap. The group hears it and stops. They stand there for a long minute and then turn west. I do not relax, but I let my shoulders drop a little. By evening, my own observation period ends. I have a dull ache in the arm and a faint heat that does not rise into a real fever. I note it and drink more water. I send a short update to the border post without bragging. Half dose tolerated. No adverse events so far. He answers with a 2-word reply. Good news. I do not let the words open any door inside my head that I cannot close. The next morning, it is time to decide what to do with the season. The corridor is cold enough that my breath shows when I talk. The hydroponics pumps sound normal. The algae tank needs a stir. The seed vault stays closed. Jarvis lays out 2 paths on the screen. Path 1. Stay through winter. Run small batches. Send doses and updates by drone drop to the substation when the wind lets me. And plan a move in spring with a full kit and a map to the border post. Path 2. Pack partial kit now. Seal the labs. Power down to caretaker mode. And run the ridge in 3 days to make contact in person. The first path is safe and slow. The second burns fuel and invites trouble. I sit with my tea in my hands and let the steam warm my face. I think about the pump bearings, the sorbent cartridge life, the spare parts left in drawers. I think about the faces I did not look at in the medbay when the blinds were last open. I make a choice. I choose to stay through winter and push the work you can do with quiet and power. I do not like the word safe for it. It is not safe. It is controlled. I can ship doses and protocols and keep my own body working in case the building requires 2 hands at a bad hour. I tell Jarvis to build a winter schedule around that plan. It throws a chart that looks like a spine. Work blocks, sleep blocks, maintenance windows, transmission windows, drone windows. We put sorbent change dates in bold. We put water pump checks in a red band. We place a weekly external sweep at noon on clear days to make sure no one has camped on the lower road. I spend the afternoon sealing Lab D in a way that lets me open it fast in 2 days without a purge delay. I pack a small emergency bag under the stair with an oxygen bottle, a suit liner, a mask, and 2 protein bars. If a fire starts and the corridor fills with smoke, I can get there blind and suit up in under a minute. I test the door handles again. I map the fastest path from the radio room to the valve room with all the locks propped. I set a small sign by the recycler that tells me which breaker to hit first if the lights blink. It is my handwriting from many months ago. It has grease prints on it. It does not care how I feel. Evening brings one more message from the border post. His 2 patients are still in isolation. The febrile one is level. The other shows small improvements in the panel he can read with his limited kit. He sends a word I have not read in a while. Grateful. I sit there and stare at it until the screen dims. I wake it again and type a reply that says, "Keep clean technique and do not relax." He answers with the same call sign and a short code for a regular check-in time, twice a week, at a band an hour that work for both of us. I agree. The first snow falls overnight. The camera shows a thin crust on the switchback in the morning. The gondola cabin carries a white line on its roof. The sign on the post creaks under the extra weight. That sound still calls wanderers, but the snow slows them enough that the station is not a constant magnet. I shovel the vestibule stairs and brush the snow from the door lip so the seal does not freeze shut. I do small work and let the day hold still for a few hours. A week turns on the calendar. The half dose sits quiet in my veins. I do not feel any change worth noting. I do not make any new promises. I run the second ultracentrifuge pass of the month and hit the purity standard without any alarms. I deliver doses to the drone and make the relay drop twice. The drone comes home each time with chips in the paint from small ice crystals in the air. I smooth them with a cloth and a little heat from the soldering iron. It is not necessary. It helps the mind hold focus. One afternoon, I go to the ravine for another specimen and find only old bodies and animal sign. That is better than a pile of fresh dead. It means the road is quiet. It means I am not going to have to hide in a ditch and decide whether to shoot a person who does not have good sense. I turn back, stop at the station to listen, hear nothing but the wind and that steady creak, and watch the tree line for a count of 20. No movement. I go home. The border post sends a longer message. He has more staff than I guessed. He lists a medic named Luis and a logistics officer named Hannah. He does not give last names. He says they received my printed protocols and made 2 more copies for farming communities that send runners to his fence once a month. He asks for permission to copy everything. I say yes. I say emphasize clean decon. I say do not promise anyone that his list of shots will turn a person into a wall. He replies with another word I do not expect, respect. On a clear morning near the end of the month, I take the apple from the cool bin, sit at the bench, and eat it while I watch the ferrets sleep. The flavor is bright and simple. It is just an apple. I chew it to the core and hold the core in my hand for a moment before I drop it in the small compost bin that feeds the herbs. I stand and stretch my back until the muscles release. I pick up the marker and write 1 more line on the board under the winter plan. Keep going. Jarvis asks if I want to set a spring departure date now, or wait. I do not set a day. I set a window. Late thaw, road clear. Water high enough in the stream to hide prints. I tell it to remind me 2 weeks before the window opens. It marks the calendar and draws a circle around the week after. It adds a note. Inventory transport kit. I nod and go check the bins where I keep the good boots and the rope with enough strength to hold my weight and the weight of a pack if I have to drop into a ditch again. I end the day the way I like to end them now. A quiet walk through each level. A hand on each door. A pause at the medbay with the blinds still down. A look into Lab D with the light off. A breath at the vestibule with the door closed. I stand in the control room doorway and look at the screens. Power stable. Air clean enough. Water flowing. Ferrets calm. Drone battery charging. Radio quiet. Jarvis waiting. My body tired but steady. This is not a victory and it is not a loss. The building stands. The work moves. The border post is real enough for now. A vaccine is not a single shot on a calendar. It is a grind that needs hands and light and a door that opens when a good person knocks. I can hold this door a while longer. I close the control room door, turn down the lights, and let the fans carry the night. That's all for now. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to keep the stories alive. For now, stay quiet, stay vigilant, and stay alive. Jack's Nightmares, signing off. Until next time, survivor.